At the same time, part of the problem at the time of the Great Depression was that we had to move people from agriculture into industry. The problem is, we had been a success because we had increased agricultural productivity enormously in the 19th century. In the 19th century, we still had 60, 70% of the people working in farming. By 1930, it was down to about 25, 30%. Today, we have 2%. But we had to move them into manufacturing from rural to urban. They didn't have the resources to do it. But in the war, they had to move because that's where the plants were. So we began to equip people for this new middle of the century industrial economy. And then we did something important. We had the GI Bill. So we gave them the education that made them suited for this new economy. So we were actually, it was not just the government was spending, government unintentionally, in a sense, was restructuring the economy, making it prepared for the post-war period. Alex Fields also has a really interesting book on the history of this period. And he also pointed out that in the period of the 30s, the government was actually doing a lot of investment in roads. And that increased productivity. And that after the war, that productivity actually increased the returns to investment in the private sector. Mm-hmm. And so it created the context, plus a lot of R&D that was done during the war. So we had a backlog. Public spending had provided a context in which private investment had a higher return.
Yeah, this is actually an important point. It's, in general, we've got this notion that the public sector and the private sector are always in competition. But quite a lot, especially public investment, is complementary to private investment. I mean, there's a lot of things that people will do if they believe that there's an adequate transportation network, if they believe that the power network is adequate, if they believe that they're going to have skilled workers available because they've had good education. And sure, I think I tend to be strip it down to the minimal story, and my minimal story would be just about the debt. But the other stuff is there as well, and of course all of this reinforces just how crazy what we're doing right now is. I mean, we have states and mostly state and local governments canceling infrastructure projects because revenue is depressed, because the economy is depressed, which is exactly the opposite of how we got out of the Great Depression, right?
And in fact,